Hello everyone, I'm your professor, and I thought I would stop in today to tell you what an evaluation paper is and give you some tips on writing one. Now you are reviewing something or several things. You could be comparing things or just talking about one thing. The subject matter is pretty wide open. You just want to you want to explain your judgment or opinion about whatever it is you're evaluating and explain why you feel that way. So this is your chance to be heard. That's the entire point of this essay, is for you to be heard. What I mean is you don't need to convince anyone here. That's coming later with the argument paper. This paper is not about convincing anyone of anything. You want the reader to arrive at the end of the evaluation essay having a better understanding of how you feel about whatever you're evaluating and why you feel that way. And that's important, the why. We'll get to that. So what you want to do in an evaluation paper is you want to use specific, what we call criteria. Now the singular is criterion, but most people just say criteria if they mean one or more than one. So you want to have specific criteria in the paper. What I mean by specific criteria is these are the standards whereby you are judging this thing. For instance, in the home goods essay, she talks about layout, customer service, and variety. She judges home goods according to those standards. A standard for customer service, a standard for layout, a standard for variety. So those are specific things. So what I mean is she didn't just say, I like home goods, it's a great store. But she talked about the specific things that she judged it by. So you want to have specific criteria in your evaluation essay that are easy to identify. Now, once you have those criteria and you're going to explain them to the reader, be on the lookout for criteria that are what we call subjective, which means they're subject to opinion. You can hear the word subject in there. Subjective means subject to opinion. So, for instance, in the home goods essay, she talks about customer service, but if she had just left it at that, we might be like, what does customer service mean to her? Maybe customer service means one thing to you, one thing to me, maybe a different thing to her. So what she did in the essay is explained that to her, customer service means checking up on you, coming over to see if you need anything, ask you questions. Notice that for some people who like to shop alone and be left alone, good customer service means leave me alone unless I need something, and then I'll let you know. So you see what I mean by that's subjective. It depends on opinion. So look out for any of your criteria that aren't self-explanatory or that other people might have different feelings about that criteria. And those are times where you need to explain your subjective definition of that criteria so that the reader understands how to differentiate it from everybody else's. In the next video, I'll give an example or two of that also. Now, also, you want to make sure you have an overall point in the essay. You could call it a thesis if you like, that's what it is. But in other words, you don't just want to talk about the facets of something or the parts of it or what was in the movie, or you don't just want to do plot summary or just summarize your experience. No, you want to have a thesis that you're leading toward. This thing was good or it was bad, or I'm looking for a spouse in the future. Here are the standards I'm looking for. And this is my overall opinion. If I find this person, I'll be happy because of these things. Whatever it is that you're evaluating or reviewing, the idea is you're not just listing things, but you're having an overall point. See, a lot of people, they try to write this essay and they just compare two things and then they're done. And they say to themselves, well, that was a pointless exercise. Yes, because you didn't do the thing, which is you're supposed to tell me what your overall opinion is of the thing. Now, in general, in writing, if you're not sure where to put that overall point, the thesis, put it like at the end of the first paragraph. That's the easiest place to put it. That's where the home goods essay puts it. Notice at the end of her first paragraph. And notice that it gives her kind of a... this is where it's good to do this. It gives you kind of a roadmap for your paper, like a mini outline. She listed those three criteria in her thesis statement at the end of the first paragraph. And that keeps her on track, because then she can just go in that order in the paper and explain each thing in order, the order she laid out in her thesis. So you got to have one of those. Now, if you're experienced and you want to mess with the form, you want to put your thesis at the end instead of at the beginning, or you want to imply a thesis, those are actually things that take a little experience and skill. So if that's you and you want to try that, I say go for it, especially if you do the rough draft. I'll come back to that in a second. But if you're not experienced, or if you're nervous, or if you're not sure, just put it at the end of the first paragraph. That's it. That's a safe place to put it. We'll talk a lot more about that as the class moves on. Finally, somewhere in the essay, you may want to include some stuff that would seem to contradict what you're saying or go against it. So in other words, if you're writing about a restaurant is really good, here are my criteria, here's what they mean, here's how I held the restaurant up to those criteria, here's how it met or didn't meet those criteria. And by the way, there is one thing about this restaurant some people don't like. For instance, the rolls or whatever. Some people don't like the rolls in this restaurant, so they may say, go somewhere else, I got better rolls. But I could see that the rolls aren't that great, but everything else about the experience is so good, I still say you should go there because all of it outweighs the rolls situation. That's just an example I made off the top of my head. So the idea is if you bring up something which would seem to contradict what you're saying, and yet you deal with it and still reassert your overall opinion, what that does is make you look more thoughtful and fair that you're thinking this through, rather than just, yeah, I love it and nobody can say anything else. Or I hate this, it's all terrible, the end, period. When you show your reader that you've thought this through, you've looked at it, you've really taken the time, that makes you more listenable. Yeah, sure, I'll make up that word. It makes people more likely to listen to you because you don't seem like you're just a fanboy or a hater. Nothing wrong with being a fanboy or a hater, depending on the circumstance. But in this paper, you don't just want to come off as being all or nothing. So it's good to throw in a little something that maybe seems to contradict or something other people don't like about that thing, and explain why you like the thing anyway. It's just something that kind of boosts the readability of your paper and makes people listen to you a little better. Now, before I finish the video, let me admonish you. There's a good word for you, admonish you. Let me admonish you to do the rough draft. Like, if you find any of this confusing, or if you're like, I think I know what you mean, Professor, but I'm not sure you're going to agree that I'm interpreting what you're saying right. I'm nervous about this paper. Or let's say you want to try something out that's unorthodox, something that messes with the form. This is a class for that. I encourage it. Please, I love people who break the rules to good effect when it comes to writing. However, your best bet in any of those cases, your best bet for all of you, is do the rough draft. Let me explain. Rough drafts can be wrong. They can be incomplete. They can be terrible. They can be just attempts at writing something. They could be a list of questions, an outline, just several attempts at starting the paper. You can send any of that to me, and I will give you feedback on how to get to the next level of whatever you're trying to do. I not only mark mistakes, but I give you notes and comments. I do a line-by-line reading of your essay. I love doing it. So make me regret offering, pile them on me. Make me work for it, because I do like getting back to you on those. And I really highly encourage you, because it's not graded. The rough draft is not graded. That means you get my undivided attention and feedback with no penalty involved if you do something wrong or incomplete. Then I can tell you, and then before you turn in the graded version, you can go back and put my notes to use. Most of the teaching that I do takes place in the margins of those papers and in the notes at the end. That's where you get your specific instruction on writing. I'm going to go ahead and guess that most people could use my help on a rough draft. Just based on my experience of teaching the course for 25 years, I'm going to go ahead and say you could probably use some assistance. Why not, right? What have you got to lose? Plus, you get your own customized final draft due date. I'll explain more of that on Blackboard. Who wants to get into all that? So, just do a rough draft is what I'm telling you. Check out the dates on Blackboard. And stay tuned for the next video, which is the top 5 most common mistakes people make in evaluation writing. Hope to see you then. It's going to be kind of fun. Bye-bye.